Welcome, everybody. I'm Lori Cohen. I am one of the counselors at the high school, and I am joined by two of my colleagues, Kayla Vargas
Hi.
and Ambercia Martin.
Hello, good evening.
So thank you for joining us. I know we have an exciting basketball game going on tonight, so we apologize for the conflict. In our defense, they didn't consult us. This evening was scheduled first. But we are sending our boys the best of luck, and hopefully they bring home a win. If you notice in the lower panel, there is a Q&A section. That's where if you have questions as I'm going along, you can type your questions and Ms. Vargas and Ms. Martin will be answering them on the computer. And hopefully I'll address all of them. And then at the end, we will have time for further questions. So we will get started. So thanks again for joining us. So this is part 2 of our evening. Our first night presentation that we did was back in December, I believe. And if you were not able to attend that one, the video of it is recorded and posted on the Cheltenham High School counseling website. On the left side, there's an icon that says previous events, and you can click on that and you can watch the part 1. So this will cover some other topics that we didn't discuss back in December. So this is what we're going to go over tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the college admissions because it's kind of a game. We're going to do the college search process, the application process, and what you can be doing now versus what you'll be doing in your senior year, the junior and senior year timelines, and financial aid. So first of all, who is your counselor? We did have a slight counselor shift this year. So, we make sure you know who your student's counselor is. These are sorted by last name. Your students should know because we just finished meeting with each of them individually to discuss their courses for next year. They should have all received an email or a hard copy, depending on their preference, of their courses that they selected for next year. So if you are curious about that, please ask them to see that. So the college search process, this is what you guys can be thinking and talking about now. Lots of things to think about and to consider as you begin this process. There's so much to choose. Basically, there are over 3,400 colleges in the United States alone. And from that 3,400 schools, you have to narrow this down to a manageable number of schools that you should be applying to. Typical average number of schools that kids apply to is anywhere between, I'm going to say 8 and 10 colleges. Some students only apply to one school. They know where they want to go. They know that they will have a good chance of being accepted. They apply early, they're accepted, they're done. Others apply to somewhere upwards of 20 schools. That's a large number of schools, considering that there are application fees. Each school averages between $50 and $100 to apply. So really make sure that the schools your child is applying are schools that they would definitely be interested in. So here are things to talk about. And one little hint, because kids don't always love to talk about these subjects, cars are a really good place to have conversations. I found that with my own 2 students. I had a captive audience, and there's just something about the car that lends itself to good conversations. So try that and see if it works for you, because it certainly did work with my family. So some things to talk about are the admission standards and the criteria that colleges are looking for. How competitive are you? How competitive is your GPA, the courses that you're taking, and so forth? How strong are your SAT or ACT scores? What are you looking for in a college in terms of the academic component? Obviously, a big factor is the tuition. Make sure you're including the room and board and all fees that are included as well. Do keep in mind that many schools have what we call sticker shock. You will see, especially some of the private schools, they are upwards of $70,000+. You don't always pay that amount. My kids and I compared it to Kohl's. You never pay the sticker price of a Kohl's item. So keep that in mind as you are applying. Size of schools. There are schools that range from a few hundred students up to 40 or 50,000. So there are some benefits to each and there are some negatives to each. So just to real quickly cover that, a large school obviously has a lot more resources, a lot more opportunities for majors if you're not sure what your student wants to study or what you want to study. Larger schools give you that option to select and change your major a little more easily. They have many more research opportunities, more um, facilities and so forth for you to use. Negative of a large school is you can often be looked at as a number. Your student's going to have to really know how to advocate for himself or herself, and you're really going to have to make sure that they're willing to attend a class if nobody's taking attendance and there's 700 kids in the class. So you really need to know yourself as you're looking into a large school. Small schools have some advantages also. Students will be in class sizes that are similar to Cheltenham High School sizes, so 20 to 30 kids are often an average class size, if not smaller. So students can really build relationships with their professors and get to know them and ask for help if they need it and so forth. Obviously, a negative is the availability to switch a major. If you change your mind and decide you want something and your school doesn't offer it, you can run into some issues with that. So also, sometimes it feels like that you know everybody by the end of the first year and kids are looking for a bigger experience than that. So those are just some general things to think about. I mentioned the class size. One of the main things that students should think about is the geographic location and the distance from home. How far away from home? Oftentimes kids will say, I'm going to go as far away as I possibly can. You need to really think about that, because if something happens, do you have a family member in the area? For instance, if your child wants to go to Florida or they want to go to California, do they know people in the area that they can call on if there's an emergency or if they're sick or if they just need to get off campus for a little while? Going real far from home, they do have to realize that they're probably not going to be coming home very often, probably just on the major holidays and the breaks, but they're not going to be able to come home for a weekend if it involves flights. You also have to build in the cost of flights. Keep in mind that when college students are coming home um, from breaks of schools, that's often when airfares are moved up higher. So build in costs of airfares. Also, you need to think about, are you looking for an urban campus? Are you looking for a campus that's in a city but has a campus feel? Are you looking for a rural school? Are you looking for suburban? All of these schools exist. So you really have to start thinking and considering and picturing what you would like to do. You want to look at, especially if you're interested in playing athletics in college or doing a specific extracurricular, make sure they have that availability if that's something that's important to you. Check out the housing and the facilities. Most schools lately seem to be spending a lot of money into housing and dorms. These dorms are beautiful. They're unlike anything we ever went to when we had a college dorm. So look at the facilities, look at the cafeterias, the eating areas, the student unions, see what they look like. You can search for a college what their average financial aid award is. That is readily available to you. So you can absolutely look for that and see if you think you can make this college affordable. Obviously, if your student has a specific major, you want to focus on that and make sure your school has that major. Do you have any special needs that you need on a campus? For instance, are you an IEP student and you need some of your accommodations to go with you? You can speak to the departments of colleges about that. Are you looking for special activities? Like, for instance, are you an avid horseback rider? Do you have facilities near there where you can have access to that? And finally, look at the diversity. We are fortunate to be in a district that is highly diverse. Not all colleges are. So look and see if that's important to you. Also, are you looking for an all women's college? Are you looking for an HBCU? These are all things that you should consider as you start this process. Other things, and these tend to be more important sometimes to parents, but these are good questions to ask. You want to look at the retention rate and the graduation rate. What is their percentage of students who graduate in 4 years, 6 years, and so forth? How many students return from their freshman year and return to the college? That's often good indicators of what their success rate in that area is. Ask about job placement. Ask about how active the Career Center is. How students can access that. Can they access that once they are alumni? If your student thinks they need to go on to graduate school, ask for the statistics of your particular major in the grad schools. All this data is available to you. You just have to ask for it. Many colleges are placing extra emphasis on co-ops and internship experiences. And if that's something that's important to you, inquire about that as well. What is the advisory system? This is something that is important because, as you know, parents don't have the access that they have in high school. So students are often left to feel that they are handling this on their own. So what is the advisor like? How hard is it to get an appointment? How accurate is the advising? Obviously, parking, public transportation can be a factor, particularly if you're looking in more um, urban areas. And then construction, if they're tearing up the whole campus and they're going to be 6, 7, 8 years, do you want to be on a campus with lots of construction? Lots to think about. All right, so how do I do all of this? Naviance is a great place to start. Students, hopefully you guys have been on Naviance at some point. If not, I encourage you to get on there starting today. You can log on to it from Cheltenham, click on the high school, click on students, and then you'll click on Naviance. Your login information is your username. So it would be your 23 and then first initial, last name. However you log into Cheltenham, you would do that not with the @Cheltenham, but the 23 lcohen. If you haven't been on Naviance in a bit, you're going to need to reset your password. There is a button there that says reset password or forgot password. Just click on that. Naviance is a really good place that we use to communicate. So parents, if you have not gotten an email from me specifically via Naviance, please ask your student to log on and add you, or email your student's counselor and we can add your email address, because we do send out a lot of correspondence via Naviance to second semester juniors and definitely to seniors. So what can Naviance do for me? So all of those things that I talked about in terms of criteria, Supermatch is a really great place. So you'll click on Supermatch and you're going to enter and answer questions about all of these topics that I just asked and talked about. And you'll be able to enter them. And then that will generate a list of schools for you that you can then start to save and research. As a junior, you're going to be working in colleges I'm thinking about. So when you find a college that you like, there's a little heart that you'll see next to it. If you click on that heart, it will save it instantly and it will add it to your colleges I'm thinking about column. To get to that, you'll go to colleges, you'll go to I'm thinking about, and then we're going to get to that in a minute. Hopefully some of you did attend college rep visits in the fall. For families who don't know what that means, college rep visits are when a representative from the college comes to Cheltenham High School, and there was a mix this year of virtual and in-person meetings, and students would have an opportunity to talk to a person who works at the college's admissions office and get information about the college. Now, the secret to this is that you have to understand is that these people who visit our school are typically the ones who are reviewing your student's application. So it's a really nice idea to get some FaceTime with that person so they can put a name to a face and they can know that you're very interested. So I don't know that we have any signed up for the spring. We occasionally get 1 or 2, but once the fall starts, we tend to have it 60, 70, and before COVID, we were having over 100 colleges come and talk to our students. So I would encourage you in the fall to look for this option. All right, so once you add some schools to your colleges I'm thinking about, it keeps them all in a really nice list. And so you can access this and it'll give you all kinds of information. You can click on the name of the school and it gives you a lot of information about the college. Something that we really like is the Naviance Compare feature. So this is our student, Joe Cheltenham. As you see, he has a GPA of a 3.1 and his SAT scores are 1050. It will compare what the average SAT score is for each of these colleges and compare it to what you specifically have. Now, this data in Naviance is Cheltenham specific, and it is set for students from 2013 who graduated in 2019. So it's fairly current. The 2020 and 21 classes we will add, but because of COVID, our record keeping wasn't as accurate perhaps as it has been in previous years. So that was kind of a negative that we had, but this is a really nice tool. So if you're looking at Albany State here, you can see that their average GPA is a 3.14. So it puts a little red X next to Joe Cheltenham because his GPA is higher than a 3.14, or is lower rather. Keep in mind that the difference from a 3.1 to a 3.14 isn't significant. So I wouldn't be worried about that. But if you're looking at Drexel and our average GPA is a 4.17, that's a pretty big discrepancy. So Drexel might be considered more of a reach school for Joe Cheltenham. It will also, and you can tell that by looking real quickly at the red X and the green check marks. Do keep in mind these numbers over here, because for instance, in Albany State, we've only had one student out of two who were accepted over the last 7 years or 6 years. So this may not be a true representation of Albany's admission stats, but if you're looking at Penn State University, we've had 371 kids apply. That is a little more accurate, you can assume. Keep in mind, this is just one way to look at how your chances are. This does not include things like legacy and activities and sports and ethnicity and gender. So this is all just numerically based. So keep that in mind, but it is a nice tool to play around with. All right, what should you be doing now? One of the things we like to encourage students to do is college visits and interviews if they are an option. Fortunately, it seems like most schools have begun with in-person visits again, which we're so happy, because it's really important that if you can go visit a school, you do. Obviously, if you're applying to a school in Florida or in Tennessee or in Ohio, that's just too far to get on a drive. Colleges are going to understand if you can't attend them. But if you're applying to Bloomsburg or Drexel or Temple that are very easy to drive to, you can get to easily, we encourage students to go, because many colleges will document that and make that known that you're interested in applying by your interest in visiting the schools. So we have a week off in spring break. That begins April 11th. That's a great time to visit if you're able. And if not, summer is a decent time also. Also, if you wanted to visit during the school year and your grades are in good standing and you haven't had a lot of absences, you are allowed to take days off from school to do that. We ask that you email the attendance office and your grade level administrator, who is Mrs. Felgois. Let her know where you will be attending. And then when you are finished, you'll have to show proof of that you attended via an email confirmation or something like that. How do you do this? You go onto the college's name and you click on a button that says visit. Most of them have it pretty big and blatant. The ones I've looked at with students, there have been options for both virtual and in person. If possible, as I said, I do encourage the in-person visits. I do think that virtual options have a time and a place, and they're an okay alternative. But I always like to think that these videos that they make and these visits that are virtually are designed by PR people. So they're going to sell the school and they're going to make it look amazing. Whereas when you walk around a campus, you get a better feel. You get to watch the students. You get to see if they're interacting. Whenever possible, I recommend that you eat in their cafeteria or their food court or somewhere and observe the students. Do you feel like you would fit in with the student body that you see? Is everybody just grabbing food and running back to their rooms? Or are they sitting and chatting and talking with their friends? Does everybody seem to be studying a lot? Like, what are your priorities? And do they seem like it matches with the student body? So you register online. Colleges have options of information sessions and tours. While you're visiting, we recommend that you do both. An information session tends to be about a 45-minute presentation that they'll give you by someone at the admissions office. Sometimes they have students participating. They'll give you a general overview of the college. And then the tour is often led by student tour guides who will give you a look at the college. We encourage students to ask questions. Parents, you should probably not ask as many questions as your student. Obviously, if you have questions, you can ask them, but try not to dominate and let the students control this process. Many colleges also have open houses in the spring for juniors. These are really nice opportunities. They typically tend to be longer than the information session, and they cover a number of different departments. So you might hear from student financial aid. You might hear from the admissions. You might hear from some of the activities that are involved. You may be able to sit in on some sessions about a specific major. So if there are open houses, I recommend that you participate in those whenever available. As for interviews, some schools offer interviews. They tend to be the more elite private liberal arts schools that do that. Um, Make sure you're aware if these interviews are being used as part of your application process or just informational. They do tend to be, you will tend to be interviewed by, often it's it's an alumni of the school who lives in the area and gives up their time. I know they will often arrange to meet you at like a Starbucks, or they're probably doing a lot of these virtually now. Whenever they're available, take up the opportunity to do that. It's a good way to get your name and your face out there again. Be prepared and practice ahead of time. So go in with questions, and you don't want to come in with a question like how many students are at the school, because that's something you can easily Google. But you can ask the person like, tell me something that you got involved in at college that you really liked, or I'm really interested in doing an internship in the pharmaceutical division. Can you give me some information about that? Come up with some questions that show them that you're interested and that you've done your research on the college itself. Students, it goes without saying, but if you're in person, and if not in person, if you're on Zoom, at least from the waist up, look nice. Don't wear a ripped jeans. Don't wear t-shirts with sayings on them. You don't have to be in a suit and a tie or a fancy dress, but just dress what we call business casual. So a nice pair of pants and a button-down shirt, or a nice blouse and a pair of pants. Just be ready to go. Don't have headphones on. Don't have your phone out on the table. Turn the phone off and leave it in your car or in your pocket or your bag. Make sure that you're not chewing gum. If you're someone who says like a lot, try not to do that. Be conscious of that and practice that. You can come to your counselor and we can give you some practice interviews if you're interested. You can practice with your parents. And then when the interview is finished, just jot a quick email, ask for the person's business card, and just write a quick thank you email to them or a handwritten note, and just thank them for the time and that you learned about the college and you're still very interested. Those protocols go a long way. All right, so the process. So what are colleges looking for? So the main thing that they're looking for are your grades and your courses that you're taking in your high school career. So they want to see you're taking the most rigorous classes you can take and be successful in them. So this is important that you continue to challenge yourself. Be aware that we do send senior schedules. So when you apply to colleges, they will get a list of your 9th, 10th, and 11th grade grades, and then they will get a list of the courses you're taking in senior year. So if you have had honors and AP classes all the way along, and then senior year you don't have any, that could be a red flag for a college that sees you as being lazy or taking the easy way out or something like that. So make sure your courses that you selected for next year are rigorous and demanding and align with what you are interested in. So if, for instance, if you say you want to be a doctor, but you're not taking a science class in your senior year, and yet you apply to be a biology major, the college is going to be a little suspect of that. So make sure your interests line up with your career, your course selections. Do keep in mind that many colleges require mid-year grades to be sent. So in January, we send your mid-year grades to colleges. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your grades up as high as you can for your senior year, especially if you had a rocky year this year with your transition back to the high school. And I know several students have struggled with that. They're going to ask to see your first semester, sometimes even your first marking period grades. And you want to make sure that you have brought those up. So really, senior year grades are important. Next thing the colleges are looking at, if they are using them, is standardized test scores. These are the SATs and the ACTs, and I'm going to talk about them in a moment. Some schools are still test optional. So what that means is they will do a holistic review, and they will not require you to submit at standardized test scores. But fewer schools are doing that than they have in the past 2 years because of COVID. So they're starting to jump back into the standardized test score world. So we recommend that you take the SATs or ACT, see how you do, and then determine if you're going to be submitting your grades or not. Next thing the colleges are going to be looking at is your essay and your personal statement. So hopefully in your English class this year, if you had a first semester and if you have it this semester, you are working on it at some point this year, you begin working on your essay, which is often called the personal statement. You want to make sure you are developing a solid, strong essay. And essays are really tough for college admissions because you don't know who the author, the reader of your essay is. So by the time you write your second or third essay for your English teacher, you get a sense of what they're expecting, what they're looking for, what style they like, and you can kind of refine your writing to fit that need. You don't know that with the college essay. You don't know if the person has a sense of humor. You don't know if they will appreciate stylistic liberties. You also want to think about how to write a creative, interesting essay that makes you stand out. And if you Google most common college essay types, you're going to see a theme, and college admissions offices say this all the time. They see things like "my grandfather is my hero," or things like "my volunteer trip to Costa Rica changed my life," or "I scored the winning goal on my soccer team." And those are essays that they read over and over and over again. So you want to find a way to write something that gives some insight into yourself, that expresses who you are in a unique and creative way. One of the best essays I have ever read, and I have been saying this for probably 25 years now, is a student wrote an essay about making tuna fish sandwiches with her mother every Sunday afternoon. And it sounds like such a basic topic, and yet it was phenomenally written. You could hear the tone, you could hear the love she had with her for her mom and the family relationships, and it was just a really solid, strong essay. So definitely take the time on this. This is not an essay you should be procrastinating on and writing at the last minute. Also, students, this is not something you can do on your own. We encourage you to get your teacher's input. We encourage you to ask your counselors to read it. We encourage you to get your parents' input on it. Clearly, it goes without saying, but make sure you're spell checking. Make sure you're using correct grammar. Make sure that the essay is geared towards the prompt that is asked. You'd be surprised when college admissions people say that too often they will read an essay from a student. For instance, UPenn has said this, that they will say, why University of Pennsylvania? And how many essays say, well, when I walk the streets of New York, because they've used that same essay for another college. So you really need to make sure you're answering the prompt specifically to what they're asking. Many of the prompts are general and vague enough that you hopefully won't have to write more than a handful of essays, but you may end up having to write 2 or 3 essays. Teacher recommendations and counselor recommendations are probably the fourth importance. Most colleges are looking for one other thing about the essay, I'm sorry. Make sure you're keeping in the word prompt. So if the prompt says 500 words, please do not write an essay with 750 to 1,000 words. Keep in mind that the readers of these essays are reading sometimes 30, 40, 50 essays in a night. And if it's late at night and they're getting to yours and it's supposed to be 500 words and they realize that it's double that, they're going to have an immediate negative reaction to your essay. So really keep the prompts in mind. Along those lines, teacher recommendations. Many colleges are looking for anywhere from 1 to 3 letters of recommendation. Do not send them more than that because they don't want to read that. Make sure you're thinking about now teachers who could write you a good recommendation. If possible, we recommend that you get a junior teacher that you've had, just because that person can speak more clearly of you being closer to college than a 9th grade teacher can. These do not have to be classes that you earn straight A's in. In fact, if you earned straight A's, but it was super easy and you put your head down in class and you really didn't do much, but the subject came easy to you, that teacher is not going to have a whole lot to say other than he or she is smart. However, if there was a class that you really worked hard to get a B+ in or a B in, and you met with the teacher and you went for extra help and you asked questions and you participated in class, that teacher has a lot of really good things to say about you. Finally, we can recommend that you send two teachers. Try to get in the teacher in a subject that you're possibly interested in. So again, if you're going in as a nursing student or as a pre-med, you would want to see if a science teacher can write a recommendation. If you think you might want to be a lawyer, maybe a history teacher. Business, maybe an English teacher, because you're going to need to be able to write and communicate well. And finally, there are extracurriculars. So if you have a job, or if you're in a club, or you're an athlete, you can ask a coach or an employer or a sponsor to write you a letter as well. But again, I wouldn't recommend more than 2 academic teachers and then 1 extracurricular person. Some colleges also require a counselor recommendation. So that would be for us to do. And we address things that are a little different than the teachers would. So we talk about you as a whole. And so specifically, if you had some struggles along the way, like maybe you were really sick in your freshman year, or your parents separated in sophomore year and you had a hard time with that, or you really wanted to take AP physics, but it didn't fit into your schedule because you also wanted to take Spanish 4 honors, those are things that we as counselors can address in our letters. And then finally, they're looking for extracurricular involvement and leadership. Now, obviously, colleges are going to understand that with COVID for the last 2 years, it's been much harder getting involved in activities. But keep in mind, volunteer experiences, jobs are really impressive for colleges because that shows a level of responsibility and maturity and leadership. Sports, participation in musicals, activities, clubs. If you have a leadership role in an activity, that will help you as well. So keep that in mind as you're trying to participate. Next. All right, so there are several different types of applications. The first is a school-specific application. So you would go to kutztown.edu and you could see an apply button and you would fill out an application on their website and submit it there. More and more schools and more students are using the Common application. It's commonapp.org. There are over 700 schools that are part of this. You fill out the basic information one time, demographics, courses you've taken, parent information, activities, and then you answer specific to the school questions. But it's a nice way to consolidate so you're not filling out the same information 8 times. So if a school is on Common App, we absolutely recommend you to use that. Finally, there's a coalition app. They created that to try to compete with Common App, but quite frankly, it really hasn't taken off as they had expected. And Common App seems to have the monopoly on filling out multiple applications in one platform. Lots of different types of admissions to talk about. The first one is regular decision. This is where they set a deadline. Usually it's the beginning of January, end of December. So by January 1st, everybody has to apply. After January 1st, if you apply January 2nd at 12:02 a.m., you've missed the deadline, they won't accept. They will then start reviewing the applications and everybody is then given their decision on the same date, typically right around today, actually, March 15th or 16th. So that's a regular decision. Then there's rolling admissions. Rolling admissions means that once your application is complete, the college will review the application and give you a decision, often within 4 to 6 weeks of your application being done. There are some pretty strong benefits to doing a rolling admissions application early. First thing you want to do is realize that if you're applying to a school in September, you are ahead of the game. Most kids don't apply until October or November. So if you apply in September and there are 1,000 spots for your major, you have a much greater chance of being accepted than if you wait till January and apply and they're down to 250 spots. So I always encourage rolling admissions applications to be finished by mid-October or end of October at the latest. Then we have what's called early action. This is very similar to rolling admissions with the exception that it has a specific date. So you have to apply by a certain date. Usually it's October 15th, sometimes October 30th, and they will give you a decision by sometime the middle or to the end of December. Sometimes, like for instance, University of Maryland ties their merit money into early applicants. So if you are interested in a school and you want to apply for scholarships, watch and see if you have to apply by a certain date. I do know Maryland is one of those schools. You do not have to make a decision on any of these three options until May 1st. So you have until May 1st to make your decision for these first three types of decisions, even if you get an answer back in December. Early decision is a different ballgame. So early decision is a binding contract between you and the college. You sign off on it, your parents sign off on it, and I, as the counselor, will sign off on it. And what we are saying is we've discussed and you've agreed that if you apply early decision and you are accepted to the school, you will withdraw all of your other applications and you will set a deposit and you will attend that college. So there are some benefits to this for both students and for the college. So colleges get their rankings based on something that's called a yield. And the yield means that the number of students who apply to a college versus the number of students who actually attend the college gives them their ranking that's called the yield. In an early decision candidate, the number of students who are accepted versus actually attend. With early decision, if you are accepted, you're required to attend, and so it increases the college's yield. There are some, this is primarily done with the private liberal arts schools, but there are some schools that get 50% of their freshman class through their early decision candidates. It does tend to be a little less competitive in an early decision pool because the number of students applying is not typically as large as a regular decision. So if you are interested in a specific school, very sure that this is a school you want to attend, you're very sure you can afford it, you're committed to it, early decision might be a good option. Make sure you're discussing this with your family, with your counselor, and this is something that you really want to do. Now, what happens if you get accepted early decision and you don't attend? Obviously, they're not going to arrest you, they're not going to fine you, but you will not be able to attend that college. They will keep you on record, and you will never be able to attend there, whether it's through transfer or through graduate school. And sometimes early decision schools do share their lists with people. So you want to make sure that this is a real serious conversation and decision that you're making. And then finally, the last type of admissions is open. This is our community colleges. You can apply at any time up until May, June, even. As long as you have a college degree, you are accepted and can attend that school. Like I said, those are our community colleges. So what should you be working on now? Essay, you should definitely, and working on this and then even in through the summer. You can be working on the essay. You really want to make sure you have a solid essay ready to go. Really, it is time consuming. So students, please do not push this off until September. Work on it now, work on it over the summer, so that when September comes, all you have to focus on is completing the applications. Students who are very involved in activities can type up a resume, which would be a list of activities that they've done from 9th through 12th grade. You can anticipate what you're going to be involved in 12th grade and include that. And then there is a space on the Common App that you could actually upload a resume and send that to colleges. So that's something you could be doing now as well. Take some time with parents and students to brainstorm your activities, because you might forget some of the things you do. Remember, you can put in church and synagogue activities, you can put in volunteer experiences, summer work, and part-time jobs in addition to school-related extracurriculars. Start thinking about letters of recommendation. If you wanted to ask the teachers, you could ask them about it now, but realize they're most likely going to say to you, come and talk to me in September. And in September, we'll talk about exactly what you need to do for that. But start thinking about it, get an idea in your head. And like I said, you can certainly mention it to your teacher now. And then finally, you can be working on completing your testing requirements. So test dates that are left. SAT, the next date would be May 7th, that you would have to register by April 8th. We are not a test site at Cheltenham. June 4th is a test date. We are a test site here, so you could take that here at Cheltenham. Anticipated dates, SAT has not officially released them, but there are dates in August, October, and November. There is a December date, but sometimes that runs too late. So we definitely recommend, if you need to test before that, try to get either August or October, November. Typically, we do host October and December dates at Cheltenham. Most students take an SAT 2 or 3 times. After 3 times, it doesn't become cost effective because scores typically won't change significantly. Many colleges will do what we call super score. For the SATs, there are 2 sections. There's a reading section and a math section. So they will take your reading score. They could take a reading score perhaps from March, and then say in May you take it again and your math score goes up, but your reading goes down. So they would take your highest reading from March, your highest reading from May, and combine them to a super score, hence the name super score. So that's the benefit to taking it more than once. But again, after 3 times, we find scores don't go up. ACT is another test that is used for college admissions. We don't offer them at Cheltenham High School, but local schools do. They are slightly different in format. They are often preferred by students who like math or science better. I always recommend students take one of each, see what you think, how you felt about them, and then put your focus on those. But if you want to just focus on the SATs, you're doing some SAT prep, either through our school program that we have or through Khan Academy, which I strongly recommend as well. Focus on just the SATs. There are free score sends that you can utilize if you send the scores before you take the test. So if you're pretty confident that your colleges are going to require the SATs, you can send 4 colleges their scores for free prior to taking the test. You would log on to your College Board account or your ACT account and enter the colleges. If you wait until you get your scores back, they will be $12 per school. So always take advantage of the free score sends if you know schools you're ready to apply to. All right, so timelines. This is what you should be doing this year. Again, touring schools, register online, start looking at the financial aid requirements, do your tests, send your tests. We don't send them through Cheltenham, so you would have to arrange to have them sent from College Board or ACT. Start thinking about applications. The Common App is actually available now. You just want to make sure that you are selecting one for the 23 school year and not the 22. And then individual college applications open up some point in mid-summer, typically by August 1st. So August is always a nice option to do college applications. Again, work on your essays. If your colleges are going to require a counselor recommendation, there is a survey in Naviance that you will have to clean up. You can do that now. There's 7 questions. We don't need it to be proper grammar. We don't need it to be punctuated. You can do it in bullets, just phrases. It's just some general information that we may not know about you that would help us as we prepare a letter for you. And finally, we're recommending that you clean up your social media if you are a very active social media poster. Not all schools do this, but many schools, especially the smaller ones, do subscribe and purchase software that they can search your social media and look for you and research for you. Even if you're set to private, they still have access, because when you sign up, you probably don't know, or maybe you do, but you forgot that what you are putting on the internet is always public domain and someone can always access it if they wish. So if you have pictures of yourselves in compromising positions, with substances that shouldn't be in pictures with an underage student, spouting off negative rhetoric towards school or friends or parents, get rid of that. Conversely, if you have your social media and you post pictures of you volunteering one day, or you and your friends at the pep rally for the basketball team that we had last week, those are things that show you as a student in a positive light. Students, your parents may not know that you have a Finsta, but your colleges do. They may not know that you have private Snap stories, but your colleges will. TikToks. So make sure that everything you post is something you would want your grandma to see, because your grandma might be the one looking at your college applications. So what should you be doing senior year? Parents, we always host a college application night at 6 o'clock prior to back to school night. We will probably continue to do virtual meetings because we tend to be able to get the message out, but this is really important that you attend it. At that meeting, we go over step by step as to what you need to do to send applications, to request recommendations, to request transcripts. So that's really critical that students and parents participate in the college application information sessions we have. Senior year, you want to complete and submit your applications. Again, your goal should be end of October. Any later than that, it just becomes highly stressful for everybody living in your family. Finish up testing. In an ideal world, you have tested and you've completed your testing your junior year. We know that sometimes you want to spend a little more time over the summer studying or practicing, and so you need to do it again in the fall. August or October is our recommendation. Senior year, you're going to be talking to teachers, you're going to be attending college rep visits. We have 2 financial aid nights and FAFSA completion nights available for families. Financial aid night is hosted by a local financial aid representative from, typically it's been Penn State Abington, who will give you an overview of the process. And then if you feel very overwhelmed or intimidated by completing the FAFSA, which is the financial aid form, we'll have a night where someone will come in and will actually sit and work with you and help you complete that. So keep an eye out for dates. Again, we do send those through Naviance. So in addition to the e-blast from the principal, but Naviance is a good way. Make sure you're getting emails from us. Seek and apply for scholarships. Naviance has a list of those that we get weekly and we update them. If you are interested in participating in D1 or D2 sports in college, you need to complete and submit to the clearinghouse. You need to submit your transcript and your testing to them. Parents, you can work on the FAFSA as early as October 1st. You will be needing to use your 2021 tax information to complete the FAFSA. And students, keep those grades up. I'm going to do a brief overview on financial aid. Again, we will have a bigger presentation for that in the fall, but just kind of to get you aware, especially if this is your first time. So there are 2 different types of financial aid. There's merit versus need. Merit money is money that does not have to be paid back. And that is typically money that is earned based on your grades, your activities, your scores, and so forth. That's the best money to get because you don't have to pay it back. Need is based on your family's financial situation, and that is determined by completing the FAFSA. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That is available for you to complete beginning October 1st. There's a section for parents and a section for students. You will enter income, savings, other dependents, and you submit this to the government. Remember, it's federal. At that point, they will determine how much you can afford to pay. Once you pick your jaw off the floor, because you really have no idea where that money is going to come from, they disseminate that statistic to your colleges, and your colleges will put together a package that they will send to you in the spring, typically, that will tell you what your breakdown of financial aid is, whether it's grants that you would not have to pay back, loans, work study. Again, with FAFSA, the earlier you apply, the better. So early fall, or I guess mid to late fall, October to November, plan on doing the FAFSA. Some colleges require what's called the CSS profile. That is an additional financial aid form that is owned and run by College Board. It asks for more specific information. If a college requires it, you do have to fill it out. The irony is that these are, you have to pay for the profile, which is odd to me, but the FAFSA you do never have to pay for. So if you are on a site that tries to make you pay for it, you are on the wrong site. There's something called a net price calculator. Every college is required to have one of these. So you could Google Muhlenberg College net price calculator, Penn State University net price calculator. You will enter some basic financial information. You'll enter your students' GPA, their SAT scores, and they will give you a rough estimate of what you will end up paying for their college. So if that's a factor and you're not sure if you can afford a college, play around with the net price calculator a little bit. And then obviously scholarship search, Naviance, parents check with your employers. Sometimes they have them, local organizations, service organizations. And again, you should never pay for a scholarship search. You can do anything of this you can find on the website. Again, you will be able to complete the FAFSA on October 1st using your 2021 income information. So be looking at that, start gathering your 2021 stuff over the summer and be ready to send that. Here are some good scholarship websites that we recommend. Definitely some options for you, but realize most money comes from the colleges, and that's where you're going to be getting the majority of your student money from. Stay in touch with us. So send us an email if you have questions, students and parents. Parents and students, if you want to meet with us, students can come in and meet with their counselor. Parents can come in, we can do a virtual meeting, whatever's best for you. Come in and we can talk about the specifics of your child's search, because this was just a broad overview, but everybody's going to have different criteria, different needs, different expectations. So certainly reach out to us and ask to set up meetings with us. Again, we send out e-blasts. They tend to be in Dr. Lahara's weekly email things, so be looking down for that. Hopefully you saw this posted in there. Like I said, if you didn't get Naviance information, I sent an email out today about this. So if you didn't get one from me today to remind you about this, you're not signed up for them. Log on to your child's account under About Me. You can add your own information. If you can't do that, reach out to your counselor. I also tend to make phone calls. Hopefully you guys received that yesterday rather, with reminders as well. Just some things to look forward to, as I mentioned, the back to school night, prior to back to school night presentation, and then our 2 financial aid things. The financial aid one is in October, and then the FAFSA completion is early November. All right, any questions? You can email your counselor, or I am done with my presentation. You can ask questions now in the chat and we can try to answer them. All right. Somebody said, since you are unable to view GPAs on PowerSchool, how do you find it? GPAs are actually listed on Naviance. If you can't find it there, feel free to ask your counselor and we can tell you your GPA. We'll give you both your weighted and your unweighted GPA. All right, ask away, ask away. Any questions here? So I will be posting this, both the PowerPoint presentation and the video of this recording will be there. So you can feel free to refer back to that. Thank you, Ms. Somerville. We're glad to have you. All right, if we are applying out of state, what things should we worry about that are different? Really, the process is pretty much the same as far as the applications. Sometimes if you're applying to a public school, the cost is going to be different if it's an out-of-state public school, but the process itself is the same. The question is, if we don't know what we want to major in yet, what would be a good way to figure it out? That's an awesome question. We are going to be doing some on Naviance. We haven't done it the last 2 years because of COVID, but there are some career inventories and interest inventories you can do, and we're going to be recommending them for students coming up later in this school year. So, but if you wanted to get started on that now, there's some searches on Naviance under careers you can do. The difference between weighted and unweighted GPA, you guys have great questions. So unweighted GPA includes everything, every course that you've taken. We are based on a 4.0 scale. So an A is a 4.0, a B is a 3.0, a C is a 2.0, and so forth. So that would be your unweighted GPA. Your weighted GPA recognizes that honors classes and AP classes are harder, so they give more credit to those classes. So if you take honors and AP classes, for instance, if you took an honors class and you got a C in an honors class, the honors class would go into your GPA. Your unweighted GPA, it will go in as a 2.0, but to your weighted GPA, it would go into a +1, so it would be 2 + 3, so it would go into as a 3.0. AP classes go +2. So that would go in, if you got a C in an AP class, it would go into your weighted GPA as a 4.0. The slides will be posted hopefully tomorrow on the counseling website, which you can access through cheltenham.org. Go to the high school, go to counseling. And then on the left side, there's something that says recent presentations. Did we miss the school's SAT prep class? Yes, unfortunately you did. I do recommend Khan Academy. It's an online program. It is free. You can hook up to your college board account, and so they will take your PSAT scores or earlier SATs, and they actually design something, a program specific to your needs and your students' needs. So if you struggled on, for instance, geometry concepts on the math section, it'll focus on geometry for that. So Khan Academy is a really nice alternative to our program that we offer. Is it okay to do college visits only after you're accepted, or will that hurt your application chances? So if your colleges that you're applying to are within a very easy weekend driving distance, it could hurt your chances if colleges are interested in seeing if you've attended. But if it's a far away school, they will completely understand you not wasting the money and the time to get there until you've been accepted. Many schools will come into the area that are far, many schools that are far away will do presentations in local areas. So often in Philadelphia or Conshohocken or King of Prussia, they will run information sessions for colleges. So one thing you can do is go onto a college's website and sign up to get on their mailing list, and then they will send you information about that. All right, when I tried to register my daughter for the SAT on the website, it sent to me website. So to register for the SAT, you will do collegeboard.com or collegeboard.org. It's the same thing. It'll both go to the same place. It kept pushing you out without registering me. First, you need to create a username and an account for your child on College Board. If you're still having trouble with it, you can have your child come and have your counselor look at it. But honestly, College Board, you may end up having to call them and trying to figure out what they're doing. Said we took the SAT on Saturday using Khan Academy. So there was something that was offered at the school. That registration ended in January, and we are in the midst of offering the SAT prep class now. So unfortunately, it's now too late to sign up for that. So that's why we're now recommending that you use Khan Academy. I don't know if we will continue to offer the SAT prep classes in the fall, but I would recommend that you try to do Khan Academy now, because you don't want to wait until the fall to get the prep class done. Let's see. Many colleges don't seem to have dates up yet for visits during spring break. Is there another way? So they don't. That's interesting, because the few that I've looked at, and they were local schools, did. But if you don't have a date that's listed on the website, you could call the college and ask them and see if they can register you that way. When does the school SAT prep end? So it's a whole program that you can get through. So you work at your own pace. Typically, we are shooting for the May test date for students to be finished the SAT prep, but it will certainly be available to you, and you can continue to use it through June and even into the summer. Great questions, guys. Great questions. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, well, I try to keep our presentations to an hour, so I am pretty darn good. It's 7:32. So if you don't have any other questions, you're welcome to jump off. Again, please email your counselor if you think of something and it comes up. If you want to go back and review this or look at the slideshow, we encourage you to do that. Schedule a meeting with your counselor. Some students are very efficient, and parents are very efficient at this process. Others need a little more support and guidance. Just let us know, and we will do whatever we can to make this process as simple and as painless as you possibly can. Would you recommend taking the SAT junior year or senior year? I absolutely recommend junior year. In an ideal world, you would have finished your testing junior year. You may need to go into your senior year to do more testing, but there are still the May and the June test dates that are available to register, as well as a date in late August. So if possible, finish your testing before school starts. Is there something to help prepare for the ACT? So we have not found any free resources that are have come to us as being very impressive. But I do believe that any of these SAT preps will help with the ACT as well. One thing I will say with the test preps, and I will speak of this from my own personal experience, one of the best ways to prep for the SAT is by taking practice tests, because they're very long tests and you need to learn the pacing and how to do the timing. So Khan Academy, and I believe Biable also has on them practice SAT tests. That's a really good way to block off 3 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday and actually get through an SAT test, so you can figure out the pacing and the timing. Many kids who took the PSATs for the first time do report that they didn't finish. So taking these practices will help you learn how to pace yourselves better. All right, what other questions? We also, oh yes. So Miss Somerville, who is wearing 2 hats tonight, one as a parent and one as an English teacher, has said that we have some prep books on hand for both SAT and grammar in the English department. They're just grammar and writing. You can email Miss Somerville to request one. I also believe that you can access books and practice tests through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, through our libraries. So lots of ways to get some practice materials. But thank you, Ms. Somerville, that's awesome. All right, well, I'm gonna hang on for a few more minutes just to see if there's any last minute questions, but otherwise we're finished. So thank you and have a great night. All right, Mr. Barone, I'm thinking we can end the night. No questions have come in. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Get an update on the boys' score. Anyone has an update? What time did they start? 7?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.